Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Inside Marketing podcast series. We're back with another episode today, and I'm here with Dave Learmont, who is the head of marketing for Reality Plus. Really excited to have you with us, Dave. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. I think you really excited to have a chat to you today because I think it'll bring a really interesting perspective to the podcast and yeah, be able to talk to us about some topics which we haven't really covered yet so far on Inside Marketing. So yeah, really looking forward to that. Dave's got some fantastic experience and kind of an exciting current role. So it'll be great to get an insight into what that's looking like from a marketing perspective. But Dave, as we all do, only because it is the best place to start. It would be amazing for us if you could tell us a little bit about you and kind of where you started in marketing, what your journeys look like. Maybe was it always marketing, or did you start off somewhere else? And then we can kind of dive into that. That'd be lovely if you could take us through.
Yeah, of course. Bit of a convoluted journey, really. So I did a degree in marketing.
Hmm.
That kind of came out of doing business studies, economics at college, really enjoying it.
Hmm.
And that kind of marketing aspect of it. I think I've always been quite creative as well, which I think marketing lends itself to really well. So yeah, I went to Sheffield Hallam, did a degree in marketing. I did a sandwich degree, so I had a year out working
Okay.
at Bosch Power Tools, which was interesting.
Cool.
Um, my dad is not very DIY centric, and therefore I wasn't. But yeah, I learned a lot of stuff, a lot of skills there, both in terms of DIY and marketing. So yeah, that was really good. Really useful experience. Like if you're at uni, wanting to get into it, I would definitely recommend taking that
Mm,
year out to work because I
mm,
think, in terms of practical sense, I learned so much that's helped
yeah.
me. And that was really good. Moving away to London as well was an interesting challenge. So yeah, I'm a northern boy, so it was very different. Nobody could understand a word I said down south. So
Yeah.
uh, yeah, it
Wow,
was,
you must have learned, I mean, just in that short thing, you learned so much that was outside of marketing, the power tools.
yeah,
It's kind of, funny setting you up for life, isn't it? We've all got to do that at some point.
yeah,
And the moving to London, it was a big change for you then to go and study and do all of those things. But I totally agree with you with the working and doing the sandwich degree. I'm not sure what percentage of marketing degrees are sandwich or provide that year in the middle. But I think it's
yeah.
so valuable if you can get the real world experience because it kind of puts it into context, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And you learn, you learn how to be in that environment. I think
Mm,
the thing with uni is you learn in the theory, you're in that closed kind of bubble, but actually being in the real world, having to put it to the
yeah,
test and deal with stakeholders, with other colleagues, with managers, it's the stuff that they kind of don't really teach you. And I think it was
yeah,
invaluable for
absolutely.
me. And
Yeah.
yeah, even say like a northerner going down south, dealing with different types of people,
Mm,
communicating with them. It was all kind of weird soft skills that you learn in a
yeah.
way that you never really expect as part of it. But yeah, and obviously working for a massive brand was really good as well.
Mm,
So yeah, Bosch is huge in many different industries, and it was really
mm,
good experience to kind of learn about how those big businesses work
yeah,
and
fantastic.
how to deal with it. So yeah, that was really good. Set me up really well for my final year. I kind of left uni with a 2-1, and I was top of the year in marketing comms. So
Wow.
that kind of was an easy path to then follow.
Yeah.
So I worked for an agency called Sticky Eyes in the north, in
Hmm.
Leeds, who are one of the biggest agencies in the north. And I worked in a more creative role there, so it was kind of a
Hmm.
content creative executive.
Okay.
So it's basically kind of like largely PR, but we were working on the content that fed the press releases.
Yeah.
So again, it was really good experience. It was a wild time, like um, link building, like backlinks and link building was massive at the time, and
Yeah.
it was all about kind of ringing up journalists and getting shouted at, which was always fun. When they
Yeah.
had deadlines, they
Yeah.
were nice at points, but yeah, if they had a
Yeah.
deadline, you were ringing them up to sell them in a story. They weren't necessarily the kindest. But again, you're learning how to deal with those situations, which was really good. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, so I kind of did that for a little bit. and then wanted to change of scenery. Kind of wasn't a massive fan of the PR world and the way it worked. So I went and worked for a small marketing agency called The Bigger Boat.
Okay.
It was in Brighouse at the time, now in Murfield. So really, really good experience there. It was there were 6 of us when I joined. So again, you kind of do a little bit of everything. So I was an account manager,
Yeah.
so it was kind of more the client side, but you do a bit of everything. Again, it's such a valuable experience. I think like when you're young and you kind of enter in the job market, you see the big brands and you think, oh yeah, I definitely want to work for them because it looks great on my CV.
Mm.
I think actually I've always, especially early in my career, gained a lot more from working for smaller businesses,
Yeah.
um, because you're thrust into it. You have that responsibility even as a junior, and for me that was really beneficial to take into other roles.
Mm.
And yeah, I was there for I think 3.5 years. Really good. Watched it grow. Kind of helped along with that journey, and then kind of really kind of found a passion, I suppose, in the marketing comms kind of line, but that passion for copywriting
Yeah.
and ideas. So yeah, I went to join Sky Betting and Gaming. I'm a massive
Yeah.
sports fan, so opportunity for a copywriter came up there. It was too good an opportunity to turn down.
Yeah. So
Kind of
amazing.
working on Sky Bet, which was really good. And yeah, I was there for 5 years, and really that's where I developed creatively. So again, kind of a bit of a weird path that I've followed to where I
Mm.
am now, but on that kind of other side of the fence to marketing was the creative side. And again, like I kind of been in the account management world, I knew that side of it, and I think that really helped me in being able to relate to the marketing team and what they were trying to achieve and bring that into my work
Yeah.
on the creative side as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I worked on kind of the CRM side initially. Again, really interesting to see how those campaigns were being built, and
Hmm.
how we could help. And then kind of moved more into the general creative campaign, marketing campaign world. So
Mm.
kind of launching some of the big campaigns for Sky Bet, working on those, and really kind of leading the idea development behind them,
Yeah.
and acting as that in a traditional way, the copywriter and how a copywriter and art director would work traditionally.
Yeah.
Because obviously now I think copyright has been watered down a little bit.
Hmm.
I mean, somebody who writes content, which it is not what
Yeah.
it is in the traditional ad agency world. So yeah, we kind of worked as a more traditional copywriter, creative director
Hmm.
role. So yeah, that was brilliant. Kind of working on shoots and understanding how that creative side worked, working with talent. Again, kind of bringing all that together. Then I moved to be a lead creative for Flutter, who bought out Sky Betting and Gaming.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
so that was more of an internal role, and we were kind of, I guess, we were all kind of marketing, creative, brand guardian function in one.
Yeah.
Because obviously we didn't really, we had a people team who I guess you could say were the marketing team of that, but we
Yeah.
were kind of very ingrained in that. So I led on the rebrand of Flutter UK and Ireland, which was brilliant
Wow.
because it was
Mm.
all about, how can we take this corporate brand identity and make it something that, the customers who were our colleagues, our people, that they could relate to and believe in. And it
Yeah.
was a really fantastic experience. And I think, again, like it's really easy to work on commercial brands and want to do that. But I think some internal brand experience is really useful as well, because I think sometimes when you're working on commercial brands, it's great. You work on massive campaigns that are brilliant, but it can often, you see the results and they're just numbers on a page. And kind of
Yeah.
working in that internal environment and that internal brand team, we could see the direct impact that our work was having. And
Mm.
it was really amazing to see what it meant to people. We completely turned the brand on its head creatively, and people really engaged with it. And it's
Yeah.
still going strong now. And yeah, it was a really really good achievement, to kind of bring that to life and make people care about it internally.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Congrats. That sounds huge. Sorry, I know there's more to come, but I mean that's a huge opportunity to be given a, and like you say, I imagine quite a contract. You've had so many. It's almost like a zigzag, really, isn't it? Because it's
Yeah,
kind of from internal to agency to internal to agency, and lots of people, will have the same experience. But there are quite a few people who've come on the podcast who have stayed one side or the other,
yeah,
and have very much, either never had agency experience or that's kind of all they did until they went to a head of position.
yeah.
So yeah, it requires a completely different skill set, I imagine, because I guess the depth or the working on an internal brand, I mean, that's then so different to how you would tackle that as an agency, I imagine.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think like the skills differences are in between kind of working in agency, working in-house?
So I think in-house, I really enjoy in-house.
Mm.
Um, I think it's harder, if I'm
Yeah,
honest, because I
yeah,
think you, especially creatively, because you have to constantly force yourself to evolve. Whereas if you're in an agency and you're working on different clients, it's kind of really easy to kind of switch between it and keep coming up with ideas. Whereas
yeah,
internally, you do face that trap of kind of falling into line and not innovating.
mm.
And at Skybet, we had a really good mantra, which was "Could it be better?" And that was kind of the
Oh, I
mantra of
love
the
that.
brand.
Yeah,
And it really it pushed me forward to say, right, this was really successful last time. The offers worked, the creative worked, but could it be better this time? And I think
mm.
that kind of internal brand mantra and culture was really good. And I think it comes down to a lot of culture when you're in an internal team. When you're in an agency
Yeah,
team, it's very fast paced. It's very kind of easy to get new ideas, but also easy to not see the bigger picture.
yeah,
I think that's the benefit of internal teams is that they can spend the time, they know the brand inside out, and they can see the bigger picture. Uh,
yeah,
and I think, to be honest, a blend of the two works really well. So internal teams working with agency teams kind of bring
mm.
the best of both worlds.
Yeah,
But yeah, I kind of always advocate for it hiring internally, and
yeah,
obviously that depends on resources and funds and everything. Um,
sure.
but I think that brand knowledge is really important.
Mm,
And I think
mm.
when it comes to marketing as well, it's like I like the outside perspective, but you also know your customers better than anyone else.
Yeah,
And I think
yeah,
that's a really important part of it as well. So yeah, they're
yeah,
very, very different worlds, and it's very different challenges, but both have their
yeah.
merits as well.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I love what you said there about like could it be better? It's quite similar to the slogan that you see going around sometimes, which is people say it's like the killer of creativity or the killer of an organization where it's what is it? Um oh, we've always done it this way, so we'll just continue doing it this way.
Yeah,
And in reality, even if it was really good, don't rest on your laurels,
yeah,
how could it be better? Could it be better? So
yeah,
that's a really nice motto to take into
yeah.
your team, I think.
It was really great, and it's kind of um, it was why the brand existed was could you make everything better, and
Yeah.
they've now moved away from that, and it's for the fans now, which again is a really good mantra and something to measure against is that, and whatever
Mm,
you're doing should be for the fans. It shouldn't be for
yeah.
profit. It shouldn't be for the business. It should be for the fans, and then the rest of it takes care of itself. And I think those businesses with a really strong sense of why they exist are the ones
Yeah.
that really flourish.
Yeah.
And it's easy to get behind, and people buy into why you do what you do rather than what you do. Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
and I think
Yeah.
that applies to, and I think a lot of businesses forget that applies to their people as well.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
I,
Yeah.
I always argue that every CEO is not in charge of a business; they're in charge of the people in that business, and they're the
Yeah.
ones who go and do the work and get the results. But the CEO's job is, and even heads of and directors, their job is to look after the people who do that work. If you look after them
Yeah.
and give them the direction to believe in, then they will give you the results
Yeah.
in the end. And I think a lot of people kind of lose sight of that sometimes.
100%. Yeah, you know, you've got the tools, they're all there. Are you putting the tools in the right order and setting the
Yeah,
right conditions for that to all do what it can already do?
yeah,
Yeah, and yeah, and I guess we can come on to that in terms of being ahead of and how you set your team up for success. That'll be a good thing that would be great to discuss. But I'll let you go back to your career journey because I keep
yeah,
jumping in. There's so
yeah,
much to
yeah.
discuss.
It's
I think we got to
convoluted.
Flutter.
Yeah, so we lead creative of Flutter, kind of doing the whole rebrand, working on the values, and
Yeah,
then I had an opportunity to come to Reality Plus, which is where I'm at now. So they had a contract with FIFA, and I said, big football
yep,
fan, like the ability to work with FIFA, absolutely amazing. So I came and was a product owner of our free to play game, which was FIFA Own the Zone, and it
excellent.
was for the Women's World Cup. So
Cool.
the Women's World Cup was in June, July. I joined in April and had to turn it all around in that time.
Oh wow. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
it was a very stressful period, but we
Mm.
managed it. We got the game out. It looked great. Kind of working with FIFA and the challenges that come with IPs and sign-offs and everything was obviously a really good experience, but really difficult.
Sorry,
Um,
my lights have just gone off.
is that
Let me just
right?
stand up.
There you
Gosh,
go.
that's never happened before. Blooper reel.
Yeah,
Sorry, yeah, go ahead with FIFA. That must have been crazy, yeah, and kind of seeing into their world as well.
yeah. So the big corporate entities are quite difficult to manage at times. They were better because we were dealing with the games team, which was kind of a bit more forward thinking.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, it's obviously a massive deal for us working with an IP of that size. And
Mm.
yeah, we we got the game out. It was great. Like we gave away massive prizes to go to the FIFA Best of Awards, and it was really good. So then once that kind of project had finished, I moved on to what we're doing now, which is Doctor Who Worlds Apart, which is a
Yeah.
free to play online collectible card game where you kind of have the whole history of Doctor Who, obviously a British institution. Again,
Yes.
working with the BBC, which is a massive brand, and Doctor Who is their biggest IP. And yeah, so that I would kind of like lead creative for that. And then yeah, in December last year, it kind of came about. There was an opportunity in marketing,
Hmm.
and as a business, we wanted to bring marketing and creative closer together. Obviously,
Hmm.
I have backgrounds in both, so I was like, look, let me go and do it, and yeah,
Yeah.
kind of got this job, and since then, it's been leading the marketing team,
Wow.
kind of bringing those two functions closer together, which has really helped the
Mm.
business. We're much more aligned, um, and wearing many hats still. We're kind of that startup mentality where your job role is defined on paper but is very undefined
Yeah.
in practice. So yeah, I've been looking after the live service, so that's all the seasonal content that we do.
Hmm.
Helping with the creative side of it, working on the marketing side of it, working on user acquisition. So yeah,
Mm.
it's a very varied role, but it's been brilliant. It's been great
Yeah.
working with the BBC closely. Obviously, the Doctor Who was kind of relaunched this year with Ncuti
Mm.
Gatwa as the Doctor, which was fantastic. Massive
Yeah.
opportunity for us as well. And yeah, we're moving towards global launch, probably back end of this year, we hope. Um,
Wow.
and yeah, we're in beta at the minute. We have a great community who are really engaged with it, really passionate about it. And yeah, so it's been a whirlwind, really. Um,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, wow, such a whirlwind, as if we've gone in the TARDIS and arrived at the present day,
exactly.
if you will. So yeah, I mean, such a varied career to date, and huge congratulations on that. I mean, your position
Yeah.
now is amazing, working with the brands that you are working with, and yeah, really varied in terms of kind of sector, though, isn't it? In terms of starting with Bosch and Sky Bet and Flutter and
Yeah.
now working in kind of the gaming and TV world. That's really amazing. I guess it would be great to know a little bit, I mean, whatever you can tell us, about marketing at the moment in your current role, because I'm sure. I wouldn't be alone in sort of not quite knowing maybe what marketing looks like for you guys. Like what
Yeah.
things are you focusing on? Because that's quite niche, and we've never had someone on here who's developing Doctor Who game and marketing that. And so what does that look like? What's on the target and the priority list for you every week?
Yeah, so it's very varied. So I suppose the two main areas are obviously paid and organic.
Yeah.
If we're talking very broadly now, paid marketing in the games industry is all about user acquisition, which we call UA, which is about like many industries, I guess, is about going out to people through paid channels. So at the minute we focus on Meta, so through ads
Okay.
on Instagram and Facebook, and trying to get users in to test the game at the minute. So that has its challenges, especially in the games industry, where UA is not cheap, um,
Yeah.
and it's very competitive, especially for games. So like we're on PC and Mac, but we're kind of moving towards a mobile first game. Mobile games
Okay.
very competitive,
Mm,
short attention spans, etc., etc. Um, so yeah, it's a challenge. There's a lot of competition. It's not cheap to do, and we are trying to at the minute build up retention, so making sure
mhm.
that features are in that players want. But obviously,
Yeah.
we're not live in the UK and US, so we're looking at kind of other English speaking countries and trying to test and make sure that our numbers are where we need to be to launch.
Mm,
So that's kind of the key in paid at the minute is user acquisition, getting retention numbers up to a point
mm.
where we feel comfortable kind of launching our main markets. On the flip side, and where I think the biggest opportunity for a lot of people lie, not just us, is in the organic side.
Mm.
So I think kind of brand awareness and making sure that the foundations of organic marketing are correct is where the massive opportunity lies. Um,
Mm.
so things like working on SEO, so from content creation to backlinks to technical SEO to on page, making sure all those foundations are right so that you can build on that and bring success. Because ultimately, the way I see it is that paid UA is all about spending money in one place and getting a lot of people in through there. Whereas what I want to
Yeah.
transition to, and I think where the industry is transitioning to, is actually more of an old school marketing approach where we are putting lots of different things in lots of different places to drive small amounts of traffic from a lot of places. And I think
Yeah.
it's a good kind of way of looking at marketing and marketing spend because it's much like a business, right? So if you have an agency and you have one massive client who are 80% of your revenue, if you lose that client or that
Yeah.
client becomes difficult, then you haven't got a business anymore. And
Yeah.
it's the same in marketing. If we put 80-90% of our spend and effort into paid UA, and then suddenly Facebook turn around to change the algorithm, or Google turn around and say, actually, we're
Yeah.
changing this way we target users, and that becomes so expensive it's unfeasible, then
Yeah.
how are you going to get more traffic in? Whereas
Yeah.
actually, if we can, yes, you need paid UA to begin with to drive that early initial traffic, but if you can
Mm.
lay the foundations and make sure that you have those foundations in place to build on organic over time, because
Yeah.
no organic strategy has delivered results straight away.
No.
If you can build that over time, then you are going to have that shift of effort and spend move towards
Mm.
the organic side, and you're going to have more avenues for people to come to your site. And
Yeah.
also, I've always found, and I don't know if data backs this up or not, that organic traffic is always more engaged, is always more willing to
Mm.
spend, is always likely to stay around longer.
Yeah.
They're just more loyal. So I think we are seeing, and what I'm reading in the industry is that, yeah, paid is great for getting users in to test your game or to kind of have a big launch, but it's very expensive. And actually, a lot of people are now starting to say what you should be focusing on is brand, is organic, because ultimately,
Yeah.
for long term success, that is where you need to be putting your efforts. And I think that's the same for us.
Mm.
We've just started a massive tranche of activity to address our organic performance,
Yeah.
starting with SEO, getting those basics right on the website, even down to things like page titles, meta descriptions, the real nitty gritty of it.
Yeah. The
But,
fundamentals. Yeah.
yeah, but it's massively important. And I think people need to make sure that's built out. So even if you're not doing it straight away, you've still got those fundamentals sorted for when you want to approach it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's a really interesting view of the changing trends in marketing and what people are focusing on. And I think you're so right that if you can create that halo effect or, have multiple channels running at any one time, then ultimately the cost per acquisition does fall down. If you just focus everything on paid, you're, not building any foundations or not doing anything long term that's going to more organically magnetize people towards you. So
Yeah,
then cost per acquisition just stays as it always was because brand awareness has stayed as it always was.
yeah,
So I think it's those activities that you've got to be on the treadmill a lot longer for, and I think that's why people have an aversion to it, right? Because we all like a quick win,
yeah.
and so people think let's do paid because it will give us some returns, it will give us some numbers that we can present, but it's not. It's almost like that on its own is like an easy way out strategy, isn't it? It's not future proofing you, and in 6 months you're not going to be anywhere good.
And I think as well, it like you said, it's like you have when you run paid campaigns, you have cold hard numbers. How do you measure brand awareness?
Yeah, yeah. There's
How's
no tangible.
there is no tangible measurement for that. But
Mm,
in the long term, your brand being out there, people understanding what your brand stands for, will bring
mm,
you results
yeah.
and loyalty. And if we look at kind of the funnel and ultimately word of mouth is the best marketing tool that anybody has.
Mm,
And if you want to get people through that funnel and build loyalists and advocates, you have to do that through them believing in your brand. And
yeah.
any, a large percentage of those paid users are being served an ad in the cold and they don't care about you or your brand. And they
Yeah.
think, oh, I might just try it. And they'll try it and then they'll won't like it and go away.
Yeah.
And I always liken it to cold calling. Like you putting an ad out on Facebook is cold calling somebody. It's
Yeah.
we've got this product, we're interrupting your leisure time, come and try it. Whereas if you can build that organic audience through socials, through search results coming to your website, then they are much more likely to engage. And yes, it will take longer. Yes, it's hard to attribute to those channels.
Mm,
But there's also the old adage, and again, I don't know how if it's got even worse now, but somebody having to see you 3 times before they take action,
yeah.
and having those multiple touch points built out is really
Mm,
important. It's really disheartening when you're doing these things and you're not seeing immediate results. We live in a
yeah.
world where it's fast paced. We need results. We want things instantly. I can order something from Amazon and have it delivered by 9 o'clock tonight.
Yeah.
I don't have to wait for anything anymore. I can watch
Mm,
a film on Netflix. I don't have to go to Blockbuster and get.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Queue up at the Odeon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like that's the world that we live in now, and I think it becomes very easy to, especially when pressure comes down from above, from CEOs
Mm,
who just want to see numbers go up. It becomes very difficult for marketers and to kind of justify working on those
yeah.
intangible things.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I think it's the ones that do that will end up being successful over time,
Yeah.
um, and are
Yeah.
the ones that will survive because UA and paid UA and the CPA is only going to go up,
Yeah.
um, and especially as it gets more competitive.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, and therein lies, what must be one of the key challenges of being head of marketing. It's that tension between focusing on what produces, what potentially, your higher ups are wanting to see, versus championing that longer term strategy, which knowing what you understand about the markets and trends and results is actually what's going to give you that long term success. And it's that battle, and I think that's so universal for everybody, and that's where the head of marketing position and people who are in that senior marketing position in a business have a really important role in sort of getting people on board internally, I suppose. And that's a really big part of it because we'd all love to be given kind of complete free reign and be left alone to do our brand awareness strategies and not have any pressure put on us. But obviously, it's not how businesses work.
Yeah,
So I think that's something that, and understandably as well, it's not that we sit here and say, well, it's very unfair that we get this pressure put on us. Why do I have those KPIs? We completely get it. But
yeah,
it's really difficult, isn't it? Because it's almost believe in the greater good, but trust me and this will work, but I'm not going to be able to show you anything for the next 6 months. That's really difficult. I wonder if that's kind of resonates with you and that's the pressure that you felt in previous roles and here.
yeah. Of course, because ultimately. to survive, any business needs to drive revenue,
Yeah,
and
of course. Yeah.
you have to do that in the short term and the long term. So
Mm,
it's about finding balance, and it's about saying this work is really really important, and we need to do it, but can it live alongside the other work? And
mm,
it's about finding that balance, but also about your ability to sell into a CEO or a CFO. Actually, in the long, if we want long-term sustainability, then this is what we need to do. And this is the situation. I created a deck the other week, and it had 2 slides in it, and it had, this is the situation now, where we
yeah.
are 80% effort on paid, 80% spend on paid, but actually in a year's time, we want these percentages to switch, and this is what we want them
Mm,
to switch to. And it's about building the work up over time to be able to make sure that we hit those percentages. And I think
yeah.
putting it in a way like that helps them understand, like, right, this is the situation now that we're going to carry on with because we need short-term results, we need revenue, but this is the direction that we want to go in. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of leaders struggle with giving clear, consistent direction to teams.
Yeah.
So one of the key things that I did coming into this role was, right, this is the direction we want to go in. This is what we're all pulling towards at the minute, and
Yeah.
that might be, we've been pulling towards getting the live service where it needs to be. So making sure that season on season, we've got a strategy that means that we can produce good content at a good rate that isn't kind of impacting us month to month. And now
Yeah.
we've kind of got that sorted. We were all pulling in that direction. That's great. Right. The next destination in that journey is getting our organic sorted. So that is the direction we're
Mm,
going towards between now and Christmas. Is we are making sure that we have the basics right for our SEO strategy, the
mm,
basics right for getting the ability to get influencers on board and making sure that they're
mm.
engaged with it. And really, it's providing that clear direction and believing in yourself as well, that you think that that's the right direction.
Yeah.
Because I say it can be really difficult when you're doing these things and not getting results. You think, oh, is it the right thing to do? Like, we're not seeing any results, but actually you've just got to understand that some things take a long time.
Yeah.
And the best
Yeah.
things come to those who wait and are patient and you know
Absolutely.
put in that effort over time.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a massive challenge, and ultimately, I'm not necessarily in the business of giving career advice, but you've got to stand up for what you believe in. If that
Yeah.
doesn't gel with the person that you're working for, then it's
Mm,
probably time to look for something else and find somebody who does appreciate those things. Uh,
absolutely. Yeah.
because
Absolutely. I mean,
some just won't,
yeah, yeah, and what business owner really doesn't want somebody who's going to be a bit brave? That's where you get an edge from somebody who is brave, is courageous to stick with a decision, knows what they're doing in marketing, but also has the bravery to stick with it. Because bravery is a big theme that comes up on the podcast time and time again, and also kind of imposter syndrome and that feeling of isolation. Because kind of as you were explaining there, I think it is really tricky as you're commanding this large team. You've got the responsibility of marketing success, or all these, a launch of a product, or just the marketing for a business, and it's all on your shoulders, and it's your decision and your expertise that's informing that, and that's really scary.
yeah,
And so I think that that's a big thing that people bring up, and often maybe they don't quite want to talk about it, but then when they realize they're not alone, actually, yeah, that's a universal part of being head of marketing. But you're so right. You've got to wait it out. You've got to trust your instincts. You've got to trust it. You've worked in all these different companies previously, and you understand how marketing works.
yeah,
So just do the fundamentals right. Follow the strategies that you know are always effective, and hold out, and it will work. But it's challenging. It
yeah,
really, really is challenging. I think that's probably the crucial thing. And then you're continuing to keep your team unified to that. Um, and then sometimes, months can go by and you haven't quite seen any proof of any progress towards it. And then it's almost how quickly you're going to hit the panic button and revert.
yeah.
But yeah, nothing good came from a marketing strategy that's watered down and diluted and safe, basically.
And I have always promoted a um, a culture of responsibility and accountability, and
Yeah.
me telling people what to do isn't going to get us any good results, because I'm not an oracle
Mm,
of marketing. Like, I
no.
will freely admit that I do not know everything in the world about marketing, and I always covet the opinions of people in my team, other departments,
Mm,
and I think you have to give responsibility and accountability to people, but also take it yourself. And I like to be quite decisive, and
yeah,
if I make a decision, that's my decision. If it goes wrong, then I'll take responsibility for that and we'll fix it. But
yeah,
by doing that, it gives people that direction to go down, and then by trickling that responsibility and accountability down into the team, if your
mm,
name's on it, well, you're going to damn well try hard to make sure it's a success,
yeah,
and you're going to speak up if you don't feel like something's right, and you're using that expertise of your team. I have
yeah,
a really great team behind me who I trust implicitly to make decisions. And
yeah,
if it messes up or it goes wrong, then I trust them to fix those decisions, and we'll work towards that. And it's about not
mm,
being scared to be bold and take risks, because progress was never made by not taking risks.
yeah,
The only way to make progress is to push the boundaries, take risks, and try things. And if it doesn't work, then that's fine. You've learned something. You can pivot. You can scale it back. You can do something different. But if you don't
yeah,
go and try it, then what are you going to achieve by doing the same thing over and over?
yeah,
You've got to take risks, calculated
yeah,
risks. Don't get me wrong. You're not being reckless, but you're saying in my experience and having looked at the market, this is a risk that I think we should take because I think it will
yeah,
pay off in this way. And I think a lot of businesses now, with all the data that we have, all of the numbers that we can crunch, they are too scared to rely on gut instinct and intuition and experience.
that's
These
interesting.
people who you hire as experts, you have been hired as a marketing expert. That's why you are a head of, that's why you're a director, because you are an
Yeah,
expert in your field and you should be trusted to make those decisions. And again, that's
mm,
where it comes down to your leader as well. And do they have that attitude towards work where they're willing
mm,
to give you accountability and trust you to make decisions? And if you have
yeah,
that and you own those decisions, you can always pivot. Like
yeah,
a large amount of what we do in marketing for most industries is not life or death. Like
no,
you're not going to kill
thank
anyone
goodness.
by a campaign going live and something's wrong. So
Yeah, yeah,
it's just reframing it as right. We're gonna, and it kind of goes back to that. Could it be better? We're gonna keep
yeah,
pushing.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of the way I like to work, and I think how we get the best results out of our people as well.
Yeah, I can totally imagine that because, being part of your team sounds like a really kind of safe space. And I completely am with you that that has to be present for marketing to succeed because it at the end of the day, like you said, you're not an oracle. We don't have crystal balls. We'd love one. But everything has to be trialed. And there's always a win because even if the campaign doesn't succeed as maybe we quite hoped it had, it will teach us something,
Yeah.
which is a
Oh,
win, and then the next trial will be slightly more informed. And it's also a really interesting point that you bring up about the kind of the neglect of the gut feel and the expertise informing the decision. And I think that that's often termed kind of paralysis from analysis, isn't it? Where
yeah.
we are overwhelmed with data that actually people just get completely bogged down by it. And in their gut, they kind of know what the right answer is, but almost the data then starts to work against them because they're trying to find as much as possible to back up, but then there's other things that conflict with it. There's always going to be data that conflicts with a decision because there's just so much of it. So it's
But
just,
that alone, data tells you whatever you want it to tell you.
yeah, also that, yeah,
Like,
exactly.
and I think this is why coming from the creative side really benefits us, because in the creative area, you start with a blank page and you don't reject any idea. You bring them all in, and then you kind of scale it
Right.
up to three. And I think that's where this creative side has helped me in the marketing side, because I'm not scared to take risks. I'm not scared to make decisions because in my gut and with my team's knowledge as well, we feel like it's the right thing to do. And it's that
Yeah.
I said it then. We feel like it's the right thing to do. Can we
Yeah.
prove it? Not necessarily, but
No.
it comes back to working from the why of why you're doing what you're doing, and if you understand and believe in that why, that all of that kind of thought process and feelings and everything comes from. I don't want to go into biology, but from our limbic brain, okay,
Yeah.
and that limbic part of our brain doesn't have the ability to form speech,
Yeah.
and therefore that is where you get gut feelings from. That is why when
Interesting.
if I say to you, "Why do you love the person that you love?" you start to try and rationalize it, and you can't actually put it into words why you love. You might start saying that they're a great partner. They look after me when I'm ill. Well, there's
Yeah.
7 billion people who can do that, but you
Yeah.
can't actually say why you do it. And I think that's why tap into that kind of limbic brain part of it, and the feelings, and if something's just not quite right. Uh,
Mm.
and that is a really useful tool rather than just using the analytical part of your brain that looks at data and says, well, the data says it's not right. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
because it's kind of leaning into that more creative side, and that feeling side of it. And again,
Yeah.
that's really difficult to sell in to a
Yeah.
CEO and a CFO when you
Yeah. I
say,
just feel like we should do this.
yeah, and it's like as creatives, we always have to rationalize why we've done what we've done, and that's again
Yeah.
post rationalization is one of my favorite things. You come up with an idea, it feels right, and then you come up with a reason as to why it's right,
Yeah. How are we gonna say? Yeah.
just to
Yeah.
sell it in. And I think that it's the same
Yeah.
kind of thing. Like when they say, "Well, why are you doing this?" Well, because I feel like it's the right thing to do. Isn't going to cut it.
Yeah.
So that's where you then look at the industry, look at the wider marketing landscape, and bring in data to support why you are doing something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Let me find a stat that's gonna get this creative
yeah,
across the line, basically. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it can be
Exactly.
the most obscure stat from the most obscure place, but if it's
Yeah.
data, they'll believe it, and you'll
Yeah.
get away with it.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, how interesting. Yeah. Yeah. And it's a challenge. And for those of us who come from a creative place first, I can really relate. Yeah, it is.
yeah,
It's difficult. And
and,
you can just look so easily, can't you? Because of the way our brains are wired. You can see two creatives side by side and you can just say, well, of course the one on the left.
yeah,
But why?
yeah, and
And
like
that's
I'm,
difficult.
I'm sure that advice will make some career marketeers who love analytics and data analysis. It'll make them sweat. But
Yeah.
I think sometimes just going out of that comfort zone of, well, this is what the data's saying. Well,
Mm.
yeah, because it can tell you anything you want to tell you. Go out of your
Yeah.
comfort zone and say, well, actually, what do you feel like is going to happen? Like,
Yeah.
look at the industry. Where do you feel like it's going? And make
Yeah.
some decisions based on that.
Yeah.
And I think it
Yeah.
will blow their minds and revolutionize the way that they.
Yeah. And take the pressure off a little bit. The decision making process doesn't always have to be, right, let me just digest all the data possible on this and then make a decision. Sometimes it can be quite quick. It'd be
Yeah,
quite interesting to see a study, wouldn't it, where they compare gut feel decisions versus really deep data decisions, and see how
yeah.
things perform in the market. Because I'm sure you're right. I really believe that we all know our audiences, intimately. We know them, we study them, we understand them. So, who better to decide on the
But
creative
also,
that's going to resonate?
it comes down, if you bring it back to customers, very few purchases are made solely on data driven decisions. Like for
Yeah,
certain industries, yes, they will be. But even down to the brand of TV, you could have exactly the same specs on 5 TVs, but you will choose a brand for a reason that is not data driven. Do you know
yeah,
what I mean? It'll be, well, my dad bought that brand. It's like banks with young people. You go to the bank that
yeah,
your parents banked with,
yeah.
and it's not a data driven
No,
decision. It's
no,
it's it's all through that limbic brain, that feeling. Like I resonate with that brand because of what they stand for and what they believe in, not because the
yeah.
data says that I should go with that brand.
Mm, mm.
And I think we've
How
got to remember
interesting.
that. That's
Yeah,
it's consumer psychology and how they are making decisions should
yeah,
inform how we make decisions about our market campaigns.
yeah. How fascinating. Yeah, we don't line everything up, do we? If I'm looking for a new pair of trainers, I don't go and build a spreadsheet and look at the performance of each trainer and work out which one is going to be best. I just think, well, that one, I love that one. I'm just
Yeah.
going to buy them.
Let me ask you this:
So, how
what
do
was
you
the last,
decode that?
what was the last brand of trainer that you bought?
I think New Balance probably. Yeah.
Okay, and I guarantee you that New Balance have pretty much the same technologies as Nike and Adidas
Yep.
and Puma. You know, you made the decision to purchase New Balance because you resonated with that brand and you like the way that,
Yep.
that brand looks on you, and
Yep.
that is who you want to represent yourself. I buy Nike
Mm.
not because the technology is great and any different to Adidas. I buy Nike because I like the way that Nike makes me feel and
Yeah.
how I look in Nikes. Like that.
Yeah.
That's literally the reason I bought them.
Yeah.
I was saying to my wife yesterday, you know, oh, sweetheart, I'm an M&S man now. You know, I buy my clothes from M&S because I love the way they're marketed to me. I like the quality of them. I like the look of them. It makes me feel a bit more grown up and sophisticated when I
Yeah.
go to an office. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And now I don't go and shop at ASOS. I go and shop at M&S. And
Yeah.
and
There
that's
you go.
because I believe in their values of I want things to last for a long time. I'm willing to pay a little bit more. The service is great. Somebody's going to help me when I go into the shop. The shop looks great. Like
Yeah.
they're the reason. I don't look at the tog quality of my shirt and say,
No.
you know,
Yeah.
oh, actually M&S has got a six when ASOS got. I'm not doing that. I'm making decisions
No.
to purchase from M&S because of their brand and who they are
Yeah.
and what they
And
stand
how it
for.
makes you feel.
Yeah.
Yeah. How
And
interesting.
I think we forget
Yeah.
that. I think we forget it all the time.
I think you're so right. Also, big up M&S.
Yeah.
Promotion for them on the Inside Marketing podcast. I'm sure they'll be thrilled.
Honestly,
Um,
I've been reading up on their brand and how they've transformed it, and it's really interesting.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, that we could have a whole separate conversation on that. That's been phenomenal, hasn't it? And huge lessons to be learned from them. And also, I'm an M&S girl, so I very
Uh,
much I can completely resonate with everything you're saying about them. It's a lovely experience. So
yeah,
yes, well done, M&S. Big kudos from us.
yeah, absolutely.
Um, well, David, thank you so much for all those insights. I feel like it's such an interesting discussion, and you've really brought a fresh perspective to the podcast because I think it's so important what you've raised about how we feel about things and using our gut and not disconnecting from that. We're all humans in a role for a reason,
Yeah,
and marketing is not yet, and hopefully won't be run by robots because of a reason. Because of there has to be some intuition and some kind of creative choice and feeling involved because ultimately it's psychology that we're dealing with. So yeah, I think it's been really interesting to explore and certainly has given me some thoughts to take away, and I'm sure for the listeners as well. So thank you for
good.
sharing that. We
Absolutely.
are almost out of time, but I absolutely have to end on the question I always ask people at the end of the podcast, which is, I mean, it's been marketing for your whole career, since the beginning, since uni, but if it hadn't been, where do you think you might have been career-wise? Did you have a dream when you were younger or anything else that you thought you might have gone into, or do you think it always would have been marketing?
So I have an issue with, and it's probably a whole other topic of forcing 18-year-old kids to make decisions about the rest of their lives because
Oh, I'm with you.
yeah,
Yeah,
I think it's a ridiculous notion that we do. But I think
yeah,
now having been and done what I've done, obviously we're still very young. I've got probably 40 years left of my career. Um,
yeah.
for me, I think I'd either have gone into video production.
Hmm.
I love film and documentaries and telling stories.
Yeah.
Or I'd have become a writer, which is still an aim. You know, I'm writing a novel, and
Oh,
it's
congrats.
kind of that is a big dream of mine to do that kind of creative writing and that side of it. So yeah,
Yeah.
still writing, but the more storytelling and creative side of it, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, congratulations. Well, I hope the novel writing goes well. See you
Yeah,
in
I mean,
Waterstones
it's
one day.
4 years in progress, so we'll see
Oh
when it gets
gosh.
finished. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a long process. Well, best of luck with that. I hope you get some time. Must be hard to fit in with everything else, but
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, just a bit.
exciting.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you. Thanks for sharing that. And yeah, just huge thanks for coming on the podcast and sharing your thoughts and really congratulations on an amazing career so far. And we'll keep an eye, or I will, and see what you get up to kind of in the next years. And yeah, really appreciate you taking the time to share that with us. Thanks
no
so
worries.
much.
Thank you for having me on. It's been great.
Yeah, no
Really enjoyed
problem.
it.
No problem. We'll have a nice afternoon and we'll speak soon.
You too.
Bye, Dave. Bye.
All right.